Woo! The Golden Stallion, the Man of Tomorrow, Savzu, the Rated R radio star, here for you for, well, what I promised. I had said that I would be releasing a bunch of little episodes here and there throughout the next few days, and boy, time to deliver. So, this this episode is actually something I mentioned. I think I even mentioned it on a Sovereign Tech Prime episode that I would be doing, and it's kind of a review, thoughts, processing of my experience at a yoga retreat that I went to. And actually, right now, this is kind of unique. A long time ago, like maybe four years ago, I think I did a podcast from this couch in the house. Of course, I was using the H1, the Zoom H1 microphone, which I love that little thing. As to where in this case, I'm actually using my Cloud 2 HyperX Kingston headset, which I've used quite a bit, and no one's really complained about the audio quality, so, no need for me to break out the Blue Yeti to be able to. For what? Yeah, and the Sex and Science Hour listeners, of course, you can hear the lovely and hyper intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and she is right now making her tea uh, in the kitchen, which I am looking into right at the moment, and she's messing with her scobies, which I swear to fucking Satan, those things are an alien life form, and I think they're farming humans to spread their spore amongst the earth. But anyway, that's just a theory, and not one that I take too seriously. So regardless, Kripalu, Kripalu, I am not speaking of some kind of alien life form. Kripalu is the yoga retreat that I went to. This isn't going to be a terribly long episode. It's kind of just for fun, but I did have some insights when I went to this thing, so I want to share them with you. Anyway, Kripalu it's in the Berkshires in Massachusetts, and it's the Center for Yoga and Health. I mean, this is a world-renowned center for yoga and just like wellness. It's not really a spa, but it is very famous. It interestingly I mean, it's only been around for maybe, well, yeah, I say only, but it's been around for maybe like 30 years, 20 years, something 20, 30 years, something like that. Previously, it's a rather large campus, and what it was before that time, as I understand it, and I asked a little bit. Previously, it was a Jesuit monastery, which was very interesting, and you can tell that it was. And I'll get more into that later. But like there's a huge sanctuary area that is obviously, this at one point was some form of church. Like I said, it was actually a Jesuit monastery. And like the rooms there, now there's a. So, okay, let me back up a little bit. So you go to this place. I mean, a lot of brick and some, there's some modern design on the outside of it and all that. But you wouldn't exactly expect it to be like this, world-renowned center, where people go and do yoga and other varying things. But that's, again, that's exactly what it is. When you walk into it, everything's very, very clean, very kind of austere. I mean, there's some paintings around here and there with some quotes. Actually, one of the quotes, like, so, you're walking around, like, say, on the stairs or something. There is an elevator within it, but, a lot easier most of the time to get around through the stairs. There was even a quote from Anais Nin on one of these paintings, which I thought was really hot. I was like, oh, that's cool. Okay, because I'm a huge fan of Anais Nin's works, Delta Venus and all that. She was something else. So anyway, I mean, like this, really just very clean, very nice looking place, and like I said, relatively austere. There's not a bunch of different colors. There's like, what's that, plants? Yeah, there's plants all over the place. A lot of gray, kind of wood paneled walls, depending on what floor you're on. I think the place has like 3 or 4 floors to it. It has. So as far as like the design of the place, and we'll get into kind of my overall experience here in a minute. As far as the design of the place, I mean, like it has, like I said, it had that one giant sanctuary, which we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. It has varying rooms that almost look like a degree of classrooms, but that have obviously been carpeted to allow them to be like yoga rooms, where So there's varying large rooms. Not all of them are like the sanctuary where it's this really high ceiling, but there's varying large rooms where you can do yoga and whatever other kind of course. Or you can do you can sit around and have a conversation for some kind of class or something. There is a cafe of sorts, and this is kind of interesting. This is kind of one of the first interesting things we'll get into about this. There is a cafe like where there's like a little kind of like if you're at a hotel or an airport where there'd be like a little shop where you could get some drinks or some kind of healthy drinks, of course, in the case of Kripalu, and maybe some kind of snack of some sort, whatever. That's there. Now, that spot at that cafe on the first floor, and then adjacent to it, further down the hall, is a Wi-Fi area. These are, aside from the rooms that you stay in, these are the only two spots on the entire Kripalu campus where you are technically allowed or you are asked to. Obviously, they're not going to use force against you, okay? But where they kindly ask that those are the only two spots that you actually use electronic devices, and I mean almost electronic devices across the board. Now, nobody said anything about my calculator watch, of course. But I mean, watches you kind of have to have them, and of course they don't have to be electronic, but whatever. But those are the two spots where you could use your laptop, you could use your phone, whatever. I mean, I could get phone signal anywhere in the place, but they kind of kindly request that you use these things there, or keep it to your room. Now, in the rooms that are available within the campus, the rooms themselves, let me describe these quickly. The rooms, I mean, you could definitely tell this is where Jesuits were staying because these rooms are very Spartan and, just kind of like a simple bed. There's really not, I mean, there's no TV in there. I mean, it looks like a hotel room and then it doesn't, has a little closet, has a bathroom in it. But I mean, just very, very austere and basic, which I like it. I really like, I dig that kind of like Spartan look. I almost feel like a ranger from Babylon 5 when I'm in there, which is kind of cool. And there's no, like I said, no TV. The Wi-Fi available does not reach to the bulk of these rooms. So honestly, unless, I mean, maybe if you're closer in, you might be able to use Wi-Fi there. But unless you have some kind of cell phone signal, which I did, you're kind of screwed. You're not going to be connecting to much of anything. Now they have a second set of newer rooms that apparently are a little more hotel-ish called the Annex. We didn't stay there, and I don't know as far as pricing goes. And do understand this was kind of a gift. It's not a cheap thing to attend, but. I don't know which is cheaper to stay in or whatever, but anyway, there. Oh yeah, there's bunk beds you can share, right? Yeah. Oh boy, this is yeah. That gets into a whole other thing. So anyway, so there's really well-defined places where you are supposed to use electronics because obviously this is a yoga retreat and this is about connecting either with other people or yourself or whatever. So they don't want all these distractions, and maybe they have some wild theories. I don't know that they have these. Maybe they have some wild theories about what exactly maybe that Wi-Fi affects you or something. I mean, who knows, right? But that was fine, and I want to talk about that more in a minute. But then the other major area that that I didn't describe exactly yet, like I said, we'll get to the sanctuary in a few minutes, is the cafeteria. Okay, the cafeteria is one large kind of eating mess hall. I mean, and there's separate rooms off to the side where you can go eat as well. Kind of overflows effectively. And the cafeteria is very nice. The food. Yeah, largely vegetarian, but they do offer some meat there. But there's the drinks available. There's all different kinds of teas. There's just almond milk and rice milk on tap. There's coffee in the morning, but seemingly only in the morning. Obviously water. I mean, there's all this wild stuff. Picture I don't know, picture going to some kind of co-op or something, and imagine a co-op building a buffet. Imagine like one of these health food stores building a buffet, and that's pretty much what this cafeteria is like. And the food comes as part of the packages that you get. Okay, so it's effectively an all-you-can-eat buffet. And in fact, on the tables, now Kripalu's named after a Swami, named Swami Kripalu, and like they have various quotes, like from Swami Kripalu. In fact, there's even like a little quasi shrine on the third floor that has his shoes. But anyway, but they have little quotes from him, and he talks about eating with moderation. But he, I mean, Swami Kripalu very wisely said that, well, what is moderation depends on how hard somebody works that day. Maybe they need to eat a lot, maybe they don't, so pretty much don't judge what people eat. And I thought that was a very nice message to kind of have on a table, because certainly people could do well to be reminded of that. So anyway, the cafeteria was that's very, very nice. Just one huge room. Now, what's interesting is that when you go there for breakfast, they offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When you go there for breakfast, it's supposed to be a silent breakfast, meaning you can't talk when you're eating breakfast. I mean, everybody's showing up. The room is filled with, I mean, I don't know how many it could seat. Maybe 100, maybe more than that. Maybe I'm being a little generous. I don't know. But yeah, it's a silent breakfast, which was interesting. There was kind of eating rooms or dining rooms, I guess I should say. There are dining rooms also across the hall from the cafeteria, where specifically, like, it's behind like a glass door and everything, and it says these are silent, eating rooms. So for any meal, if you just want things to be completely silent, that's what you got. Okay, you could go in that room and then everybody was supposed to be quiet. Now, in the cafeteria, like I mentioned about the cafe is a different section. The cafe is a place where you could use wireless, and then there's the wireless section where you could use, kind of the wireless lounge, where you could use, electronics. But in the cafeteria proper, in the cafeteria itself, it also followed the same rules, where you weren't supposed to bring your phone, you weren't to bring your laptop. And here's the one that actually kind of ticked me off. Okay, so here, and I haven't even gotten into the positives of the place because there's plenty to talk about. But this is the tech angle that kind of ticked me off, is that it said no, for the cafeteria particularly, it said no e-readers. And I thought that was I was like, what? Why? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Why say, why no e-readers? I mean, e-readers in many ways are barely electronic. Like, they're more magnetic than they are electronic, right? Like, e-ink operates, on a degree of like a magnetic principle. Like, it really didn't make any sense to me, that one. And I brought my Kindle Paperwhite, of course. And like, even like how much electricity, like, say there was a concern about that, or Wi-Fi. Well, one, you could turn the Wi-Fi off, and I would certainly do that. I normally have the Wi-Fi off on my e-reader anyway, just to get even more battery life out of it, right? But like, they even tested this, because back when there was the big argument on whether or not you could keep your electronic devices on, say when you were flying on an airplane, like, they would test just how much, signal was coming out of, any such device. And one of the things they tested was an e-reader. And I mean, practically nothing was coming out of that. Like, it's impossible for an e-reader to in any way affect the control, the paneling on, or, the control panels on an airplane, in the cockpit, let alone the person sitting in front of you somehow. I mean, like, it's so fucking minimal. So I didn't really get the argument of why there couldn't be e-readers, because, like, I think the idea of a silent breakfast is phenomenal. Okay, I mean, myself personally, when I wake up in the morning, a lot of times, honestly, well, Stephanie's still asleep, and I'll get up and no judgment, absolutely no judgment. I'd love to sleep in more, but like, Stephanie will still be asleep, so I'm getting up and I make tea, and it's all a very quiet thing, and like, one of my favorite things to do, if I can, if I have the time, is, to break out the e-reader while I'm sipping on tea or something. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. So, I enjoy a silent morning. I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I don't mind a loud morning, a really loud morning, if you know what I mean, either. Like, I'm totally game for that. But anyway, I can appreciate a silent breakfast. The thing is like, I'd like to bring something to read, and I don't want to have to carry a paper book. Not that I don't have paper books, I have tons of them. But yeah, I mean, if I go to Kripalu again, this was as a gift, and it would be again in the future. I would definitely be bringing, like, a couple paperback books with me, because if I'm gonna be sitting kind of alone having a coffee or having a little little morning having like a breakfast buffet of sorts. Yeah, I'm going to want a book with me, you know. So, but I mean, I can appreciate that. I thought that part, that e-readers, like I really don't think, like even the screen, like maybe the concern is over the screen. An e-ink screen isn't even remotely related to the screen on your smartphone, on your laptop, your TV, or anything. It's a completely different fucking technology and a superior one, in my opinion. I mean, there is no eye strain. You get no eye strain from looking at an e-reader. So I mean, that's just a personal peeve of mine. I don't think an e-reader, like I said, I don't even count them as an electronic device, and I don't think they should be counted as an electronic device whatsoever. And I think the people that produce e-readers also honestly feel the same way, and that's why they still make them. Because like they may even know that there's kind of that niche for people that want that sort of thing. I'm certainly part of it because I look at screens far too goddamn much in the first place, and I mean sometimes by choice, other times really not by choice. Because it's my job or my varying jobs. So anyway, but e-reader aside, like I actually really liked the fact, and we haven't even gotten into the yoga yet, but I really liked the fact that, and understand, I only spent like a little over maybe 24 hours there. We were going to spend a longer amount of time, but there ended up becoming there was this crazy blizzard that came through. This was a couple weeks ago. There was this crazy blizzard that was going to come through, and we would have ended up being stuck there. And like I didn't have all the equipment necessary to keep what I needed to do, going, and neither did everyone else. So we had to go. We had to leave, kind of early to be able to make it home before that blizzard struck. So anyway, boy, where the hell was I going with that? Yeah, so I spent, yeah, like I said, the whole trip ended up being about 24 hours. So, but even within that time, like, and walking around mostly and doing things and like even eating and whatever else without really being able to look at an electronic device, because I respected their wishes, the place's wishes. It's just that simple. I'm just, they didn't have to make a law. I'm just going to, okay, you don't want people using, electronic devices around, their smartphones and laptops and all that. Great. I won't, I can totally respect that. Boy, did that fucking feel good. Even just for that short amount of time, that felt so good, to walk around like that. And I didn't even carry it with me most of the time. It really felt great. Like there is really something to that. Even, like I said, even just for a day. Like in a part of me, I know I can't. There's no way I can do this. Not because I don't want to, but because, my various jobs and gigs wouldn't allow me to do it. Like I would love to practice that. Like once a week, spending a day, like having a little. I hate to call it this, but it might be the most fitting term. Having a digital Shabbat. To where like, yeah, I'm just not going to look at anything electronic, minus the e-reader. Like I said, e-readers don't fucking count, in my opinion. And just like have a day where no electronic devices. Fuck this shit. Like I'm just not doing it because that felt so good. That really, really felt so good. I mean, it was unique. It was an interesting request that the place made, but I think I kind of get it because it definitely had me looking a lot more inward when I didn't have that, that little infinity box that looked outward, right? That being the smartphone or laptop or, whatever. So that was cool. I didn't mind that at all. Now, as far as the yoga goes, well, first off, I should say, so I attended this with the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy and her mother. And it was a great time. Stephanie and I had a room, and her mother had a separate room, and that, well, okay, so to touch on that, that was something. Like the place was definitely really warm inside, like really, really warm, and I think it was warm probably because, well, they don't expect you to be wearing a whole lot of clothing, while you're there, and maybe I should touch on that next. So okay, so here's the thing with that. Obviously the place was, I mean, and I'll just call it straight. The place, I mean, you are just surrounded by, well, a lot of very, very attractive women, some of them older. I mean, varying ages and all that. I mean, and certainly there's women that maybe aren't so attractive. But I mean, you're surrounded. Bottom line, you're surrounded by a lot of women. There are guys there, no question. There are guys there. Okay, and everybody's wearing. Well, here's the funny thing. Like this is the guys are largely wearing very baggy clothing, myself included. And the women, of course, are all wearing yoga outfits and everything, right? Um, I mean, obviously, Stephanie did that too, and she looked fucking amazing. Clearly, the hottest woman there. And but but anyway, it's just the truth, folks. But yeah, I mean, there's women everywhere, and they're all wearing. I mean, there's even in fact, it was really cool. One gal I saw, she was wearing she had a hoodie on, but it was a Star Trek: The Next Generation hoodie where it looked like looked like one of Doctor Crusher's uniforms, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And this is going to get into a point here in a minute. But yeah, so the temperature of the place was largely hot, and when we were in the room, like sleeping at night, like I kind of didn't exactly have the best sleep in the world. Not because the bed was uncomfortable or the room was too Spartan or something like that, but just because like it was very very warm in there. And again, I get it. I understand, why it would be that way because, it's the middle of winter or close to the end of winter, I guess. And people in there they're doing yoga, so it's not like they're walking around, wearing fleeces and all this other stuff, right? It just makes sense. So, I'm not really complaining about the temperature in there whatsoever. I get it. It makes total sense. Um, but it speaks to like obviously now yoga itself, I think has a stigma around it that it's mainly for women. I've talked about this before on Sovereign Tech. Now, obviously, that's not true, and it hasn't been true for a long time. I mean, you think about even in the '90s, like I remember the Rodney Yee videos, even VHS, and then there were DVDs that you could get. Rodney Yee is this very famous, yoga instructor who has, I think he lives a pretty hedonist lifestyle personally, but you'd have to look at that's getting into his personal life. You'd have to read about that yourself. But yeah, I mean, yoga is certainly for guys as well, has been forever. I mean, certainly as far as within yoga's own history. And I'm no expert on the history of yoga by any stretch. Well, women weren't allowed to do yoga. For thousands of years, women weren't allowed to do yoga, which is so that makes a much even greater irony. Is that in America, when yoga came to America, whenever in the '60s and '70s and all that, and then it really reached a pretty kind of a hyper popularity in the '90s, even into today, that it was largely seen as a woman's thing, right? So I mean, so I understand because this kind of one room that I didn't talk about within Kripalu, which by the way, if you want to check it out, the website is in the show notes for it. It's just kripalu.org, KRIPALU.org, but you can find it in the appendix of this episode. But there are a lot of bathrooms in this place. Now, I don't just mean in the rooms that you stay in. There's bathrooms all over. However, there is a ratio, okay, of how many of these bathrooms are for females and how many are for males. And it's probably 3 or 4 to 1. Like, okay, they did have gender neutral bathrooms. That's great. So, but like I was looking for a bathroom. I literally passed 3 women's rooms before I found I found a men's room. And I thought that was and like I have no problem with this whatsoever. It makes absolute sense that something where it's largely women attending, you have more women's bathrooms. I mean that's pure logic. Like it's not a complaint from me. I just found it interesting. It's just something that I noticed. And again, I have zero issue with that. Also, they did have like they had saunas there, and they did have a men's sauna. They had a women's sauna, and they had a women's hot tub apparently, but there wasn't. And it was a nude. It was actually a nude hot tub, but it was only for women, and there was no men's hot tub as far as I could see. Now, understand exactly what I'm saying to you. I have no issue with this. Why? Because generally guys aren't going to this thing. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't or they can't. Obviously I did and I had a wonderful time. Okay? But it just makes sense. You know, like of course this is exactly what you do. So and I think it was kind of weird because like I was commenting on that, at various points, and it's like no, I don't feel like I don't feel marginalized at all. I just understand why it's set up that way, and I just found it to be interesting. Like I literally didn't feel marginalized, and honestly, if you would feel marginalized in that case, I think you're fucking ridiculous. As a guy. So anyway, yeah, so that's kind of an interesting thing. So let me talk a little bit about the yoga, and then I want to get into kind of the larger picture, kind of my larger takeaway from attending this. So the yoga, the first when we got there, we went to we went to kind of like a more gentle yoga class, which was actually really good, and it was led by a guy. I want to say his name was Chris. I could be wrong about that. Yeah, it was Chris. Okay. And he did like I mean just a tall guy, kind of looked little bit lankier, had a good soft voice to him, good affect. I mean just and you're there and you're doing little moves and I mean it was really like I'm not new to yoga. I've done it with Stephanie many times, and I enjoy it. Especially the gentler types. Like, I mean, usually if it's something where I'm really going to be working out, you're doing a lot of downward dogs and raising legs and everything, like that. Sometimes I'm not always feeling up for because usually I have already done a workout, during the day, and I'm kind of fatigued or whatever, physically. But yeah, anyway, this gentle yoga was great. It was really really great. And I wasn't the only guy in the room. There was probably two other guys there, so that was cool. But there was I don't know maybe 20 people, something like that, in this one room. And we were going through the motions and everything. And the instructor Chris was really great because like he wanted to there was no judgment. And I mean if you wanted to, you could have just been kneeling there in child's pose the whole time if you wanted, if you didn't feel comfortable. And that was the nice thing too, was that really this whole place, I mean like it really felt like that judgment free zone, to where everywhere you were, everything you were doing, everything just seemed like yeah, no, everybody was really nice. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So but we're in this room doing the yoga, and like he would, the instructor would kind of say, okay, now you kind of want to do this, and he would ask if he was going to touch you to kind of help you out. And he helped me out at one point too. And he would ask, and he would say, "It's like, may I help you?" And it was, I mean, just it was really great. Like, I mean, the guy, you know, when you're a guy, and like I said, with the amount of women there, like I think you might want to be like a little extra careful to some degree. Because certainly, I mean, there's plenty of cases, I mean, and there's whole videos that make fun of this, frankly, even though it really does happen, where, you have that new age yoga guy who's the instructor, and he really uses it to kind of do untoward things, towards the women that he's instructing or whatever. This guy wasn't that at all. I mean, just very, 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 very slick in what he was doing. His presentation was incredible. His instruction was very respectful. All of it, I thought it was fantastic. It was a great experience. It was a great way to start off, the time that we were there. And so we did that. In fact, there's even it was kind of funny. Like I half wondered. I'm just kind of being jocular with you, but like I half wondered if the dude was gay, because it was, I just mentioned the thing about the women, but he comes up to me and he's like, yeah, he's like, he kind of touches my shoulders. He's like, yeah, rest those big shoulders, let them hang down. And then he kind of felt my side, and he's like, almost like he was like sizing me up. It's like, all right, well, how's his lats or something? I kind of felt a little, and whatever. I didn't care. I mean, and that was probably just me, reading into it, reading into it a bit. But I just thought that was kind of funny. So anyway, so that was kind of a running joke, throughout it and whatever, and that's fine. I mean, he could have just, what, Stephanie's coming over. What is it, love?
A lot of these new age people they say like, gay, straight, they're just like labels that we assign to our sexuality.
Yeah.
And really, everyone has like masculine and feminine energy within them, and we're just attracted to the masculine and feminine within other people. I think there might be something to that,
Sure. Sure, that's
But I didn't
something.
get. I was saying I didn't get a gay vibe from the instructor.
No, I didn't either. I'm like I said, I'm being kind of joculant. So yeah. Though I don't know. I don't know what possible feminine energy I have. But anyway, and I don't mean that as any kind of like derogatory thing towards feminine energy.
You
Obviously, I
do.
worship feminine
You do,
energy.
and I'm attracted to
Oh,
it.
that's nice. I love
I
you.
do.
So anyway, so yeah, so we did this, and you liked that opening yoga, didn't you, love? You can just yeah, you did.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah, it
It
was
was a
good.
great way to start off our time there. I felt like completely different when I got out.
Yep.
Like sometimes after you haven't done yoga for a while, you realize like how tight your legs get and your back, and at least
Hmm.
I do.
Sure.
And then when I got out, I felt like I was way more loosened up, and it lasted until the next day.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's no, that's true too. It's like I kind of felt the same, where it felt like, yeah, it was kind of a lasting experience, which was something. So anyway, so we did that class, and that class ended, and I almost, boy, during shavasana, which is where you rest at the end, and you kind of take in the experience of what you did, and you're just laying on the floor. Like I think I started like snoring, so like I fell asleep because it was a really long shavasana, which I'm not used to. But anyway, that was fine. Um, so anyway, so we did that. Then we went off and we had dinner, and the dinner was I really liked it. Like I really really enjoyed it. Now I mean I had a few years of my life when I was young where my family was vegan, so I can appreciate a vegan meal here and there. It's not my choice now, but it wasn't entirely vegan. There were meats to be had certainly, but I really really enjoyed the dinner. That was awesome, and it was a I want to talk more about the eating experience and the experience overall a little bit later on in this. So anyway, so we did that. Then we kind of went up to the rooms and relaxed a little bit. And then they had like this, and I don't know, I forget exactly what they called it, but then they had kind of this nighttime thing that to attend. And we went to that, and
It's called yoga nidra.
yoga nidra. Okay, so that so we went to that, and this was like I don't know an hour long or something like yeah, it was about an hour long. And this is within that sanctuary. Okay, where it's like literally like a church sanctuary if you've ever seen one. Very tall ceiling. And kind of the big lights hanging down. You sort of had like a faux stained glass of sorts, and for whatever reason, I assume this wasn't there when the Jesuits were running the place. But I mean, like there's these red lights all over the place. I mean, it looked. Let's just be clear. It looked positively satanic. I mean, it was really Jesuit conspiracies aside, okay, because there's plenty to be had as far as that goes. Uh, like yeah, it kind of fit, like it fit everything you think about Jesuits, and then it fit. Understand this, like Christianity, a lot of Christian denominations consider yoga to be literally of Satan. Like they consider it a satanic practice. In fact, there's books out there, the Christian books, that really are teaching yoga, but they just name it something else. That way it's not yoga, and that way they don't think you're calling in, the spirit of whatever, Shakti or something, or name the the Hindu god or goddess or something. That yeah. So like it really really fit the bill, and I just loved it because there's probably like 50 women in there, and some guys, and myself included, and it's just you kind of laying down and breathing and going through this whole breathing exercise and everything. And like I said, it goes for about an hour, and you're blindfolding and all this stuff. And I mean, I'll admit I wasn't feeling it when I was there, but there have certainly been times in my life where I have fantasized about such a situation. I mean, because, like I said, I mean, if they just had organ music playing, like it would have been, it would have been a black mass. It was so good. But anyway, so I'm trying to, I lay down during this. Okay, and that's the thing. You're supposed to be laid down and, kind of blindfolded and everything. And I'm worried. I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to fall asleep. God damn it. And I do everything I can to keep from doing that. Apparently, at some point, I did, but like I spent the time. I didn't do a great job of like kind of participating. Not because I was like loud or something like that. Even though I don't know, I might have snored or something. But Other people there certainly were too. But like what I tried to do to stay awake because I was worried I'd fall asleep. What I tried to do is just tried to think of like literally I was spending the time while laying there. I was spending the time just like thinking of future storylines for for Sovereign Tech for for the Sovereign Universe and everything. And but at some point I guess I zonked out for a little bit, and then when it was over, I kind of I woke back up. Um, and after that, felt great. Admittedly, felt very refreshed and was actually ready to go kind of right to sleep. Didn't end up doing that. Spent a little time in the room doing some things, and I had to do some audio editing, and ended up doing that. And we ended up
They made
yes,
it really easy to fall asleep. They roll up the sidewalks at 9 o'clock.
yeah, oh yeah, meaning like right,
There's
everything is
nothing going on in the place. In fact, we went down to the Wi-Fi cafe to check our emails and do some work at like 10 or
it
11.
was like 11, and it was
Around
dead
11,
empty.
there was no one else there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the yoga classes start at like 5:30 or 6 the next morning.
Sure. Admittedly, though, like in some of the rooms, like near the cafeteria and everything, like they had a lot of tea and juice and other stuff like available 24/7, which was really nice. So yeah, right. So it is easy to fall asleep there because everything kind of ends at like 9 o'clock at that place. The cafe closes and all this stuff. Um, we did a little bit of work after that, but ended up going to sleep. I think pretty much before midnight, and then got up the next day. Myself, I got up at like 7, like breakfast, or it wasn't 7. It was like 7:30, and breakfast runs kind of early, or runs from like I think 7 to like 8:30 or something like that there. And I wanted to get some coffee, and I figured, well, I'll see what they have as far as breakfast goes. The breakfast was amazing. Like I said, it was a silent breakfast. Ended up Stephanie's mother ended up joining me. Stephanie was still sleeping until we were going to get her up, so which is totally fine. Again, there yeah, no judgment, Lovey. Um, so so anyway, so we're having coffee, and we weren't as quiet perhaps as we should have been, but that's okay. I really appreciated even the concept alone. And then we went to there was a grieving kind of course, or like yeah. Anyway, there was a thing that we went to, and we caught that. And then after that, that was very interesting. That was kind of a more mental, kind of introspective aspect of yoga. And then we went on a hike there. We went and got lunch, and then we went on a hike at like 1:30, which was this just beautiful hike, kind of through the Berkshires there. I mean, still within kind of the campus, at large, but just a fantastic, stunning hike. And in fact, I shared some of the pictures on various social media of Stephanie and I, from that hike, and it was, I mean, it was just really great. And there was a part of the hike where kind of the leader, kind of the guide, the hike guide, said, okay, let's have it be a silent hike for like 15 minutes. And that was fantastic. That was great. Got to do a lot of great thinking. Just very enjoyable. And, there's plenty of snow on the ground too. Not that I mind that. It was fairly cold. I don't mind that either. I prefer it, actually. I'm cryophilic. And I just really, really, really enjoyed that hike. After the hike, ended up coming back, and and then not long after that, we left to try and beat this huge blizzard coming. So anyway, that was the whole thing. And like I said, I really enjoyed it. I loved the atmosphere. I actually really loved just the kind, just the simple asking, hey, be a little more conscious with your electronic devices, and let's just not have them everywhere, and let's not have them be a part, of the events, and the what gets organized, at Kripalu and everything. And I thought that was fine, and I actually I really liked it. Now, to speak to the overall thing and kind of the overall takeaway that I had. And this is you might think that what I'm about to say sounds crazy, and if you do, fine, that's how you feel about it. But it's how I felt about it, so everybody has to deal with it. I really felt like now I'm not a huge fan of yoga. Okay, I mean I don't mind it. I like it. Okay, I'm just like it's not like something that I consciously think about. Okay, I'm going to do this today. I'm all about physicality. I love going on hikes. I love walks. It's one of my favorite things to do. I do it whenever I can. Certainly, if in my perfect life, I do it every day. Working out, I do my level best to work out every single day. So it's not like I'm averse to physicality. The exact fucking opposite. Just yoga, isn't something that necessarily tops my list, but I get it and I appreciate it and I respect it and I actually really, enjoy it when I get to do it. Depending upon, what other physical, activities I went through, through the day previous. And I love watching Stephanie do it. I mean, certainly, and I usually sit with her when she does do it. Unless her time doing yoga is the same time that I'm working out, then it's a little bit different. But otherwise, I love sitting with her, and even just watching her do it. I mean, first off, it's fucking sexy as hell, but but second off is it's just really impressive to to watch people, especially that are good at that craft, to do it. It's really something. But so that's kind of my thoughts on yoga overall. But that said, again, me not being this huge fan of yoga, like I would sit in this place, I'd look around, and particularly when I was sitting in the cafeteria, like I felt like I was looking at the future. Like it was really kind of weird. Like I almost, and granted, this is a lot of this is my own in my own head because they're analogies that only I would come up with because of my personal experience and attachment to the subject matter, but like I sort of felt like what was running through my mind the whole time was that okay, this is what it would be like to hang out like in on 24th century Earth. Like this is what it would be like to be at Starfleet HQ. I mean, everybody's looking or not everybody, but a lot of people are looking very very healthy. Everybody's wearing clothing that maybe, I mean, well, yoga pants are popular to wear all over the place now. I mean, everybody wears them at the grocery store and everything because they're just so damn comfy. But, everybody's wearing, I mean, like, it kind of felt like paradise, even though it was in the middle of winter and everything. But, like, you really got that sense. Certainly part of that is I'm a guy amongst not so many other guys, and there's kind of women everywhere. Like, I get that aspect of it, right? But, and the women there, I mean, super friendly. Like there must have been 5, 6 conversations get struck up just while I'm grabbing some almond milk. I mean, it was, or I mean, many conversations, but it was very nice. It was just super, super nice, and everything was kind of like never. There wasn't anything like very loud, and it's one of those rare places where I've been. I mean, if you're at a hotel, even if you're at like a theme park or places where you're supposed to be having a good time, usually you see a few people with a look on their face like they're just ready to pop. They're just ready to scream about something, or they're mad or whatever. I mean, nobody in that place had that look. It was I mean, I kind of feel like it's like, you hear all these like, liberal dreams, and I don't mean liberal like classical liberal, I mean liberal like, leftist, just speaking in conventional terms today. Like this is like, I think this was like the liberal dream come true, kind of being there. I mean, in so many ways, even with what the food was offered, and all of this shit. It wasn't exactly communal living, but you know what I mean, whatever. But like, I felt like seeing this, and obviously a place like this couldn't exist without the market system, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm just saying that, like, I felt like I was looking at the future. Everything was so peaceful. People were healthy, and even like, even eating, kind of in that cafeteria and everything. I don't know. It felt like some kind of a sci-fi movie or an episode of Star Trek or something. It really did. And there it was, and it was right here. And one of the instantaneous things that came to my mind was, and I don't know if I'm going to get this quote exactly right, but I love the quote by William Gibson. He said, "The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed." Now, people hear the phrase "evenly distributed" and they freak the fuck out for no good reason, frankly. But his just point being is that, like, yeah, all these futuristic technologies and all that stuff. Look, it's already out there. It's just not everybody can has access to it. That doesn't mean everybody has to have access to it. Calm the fuck down. All right. It just means that, like it's not there. And that's what I kind of felt like. Like you're here and it's like, holy shit, like this is Like, too bad the whole world isn't this way, right? In one sense. I mean, everybody can have their, obviously as an egoist, I think everybody should be able to choose how they want to live in the first place. And it's certainly not everybody the way they want to live is going to end up looking like Rapalu, by any stretch. But whatever, just to me, I felt like I was looking at what the future could be. And it was really, really something to see people come together. I mean, and a lot of people, frankly, at that, and like, and just to like really be able to live this. It was really something. It was amazing. Nobody was yelling, and there was laughter. I mean, and people just were being. I don't want to get into woo-woo terms, but everybody just seemed kind of centered and grounded. I mean, maybe outside of that place, their lives are a fucking mess. I could totally accept that. Okay, but there, it worked. And what parts of what allowed for that? What parts of the environment that the people at Kripalu, the people that run that center, that they created that really allow people to to kind of live that life. And there were people there that were sad. Like I said, there was a grieving kind of I'll say course that was had there, or class or something. And there's certainly people that are very sad and all this, and had some very deep emotions that they need to get out. And obviously there was traumas and tragedies in their life and everything. But they could go, they could be in this environment, and I think I felt like it was a very healing environment and a very accepting environment. It was a non-judgmental environment. I mean, and yeah, there's filters. Okay, it's not a cheap place to go to. All right, I get that there was that there's certain like socioeconomic filters that even allows like people to be able to attend a place like that. But it was something to really be able to see. It was downright shocking to me because you never see like that real life example of that sort of thing. But like I said, I felt like I was I really felt like I was on 24th century Earth for a little while. And it felt great also, because when you hear 24th century Earth, you're thinking high tech, right? It felt great not to have the technology there. And I was kind of reminded, like, speaking of Star Trek, I was reminded of one of my favorite Star Trek movies, Star Trek Insurrection, with the Baku, where the one, kind of the love interest for Picard in the movie, where, she's like, she says, we learned that, what could be found out in outer space that can't be found right here. Meaning in their little community and within themselves, kind of in that inner space. And while I don't agree that, that there's some kind of like folly in exploring outer space, I think that's how you actually get because this argument comes up a lot, right? That, it's ridiculous that people want to go to outer space when they don't bother, really to explore themselves. Well, I understand that point, okay, and it's about priorities. That's really what's being discussed. But in my opinion, humanity's never really going to be able to explore what's inside if we don't get the fuck off of this rock and get away from the people that are just really always going to be, like just this domination culture, and be a part of it and express it and reinforce it. So, to explore inner space, I think we need to get to outer space. But for a brief moment, for a day, and it could have ended up being longer and whatever, I felt like I got an experience. I had an experience where I saw what a world where people really do look inside and they pay attention, and they concentrate and they connect with others and themselves and all that. Like, I really got to see that, and that was amazing. Like that, I mean, that was absolutely amazing. Now, admittedly, like, I mean, I could say some pretty incendiary things right now, if I really wanted to. Like, I could say, what allowed for that? Is it the environment? Is it, perhaps the monetary, the economic level that the bulk of the people attending may have achieved, that allowed for a certain lack of worry? Well, I mean, that can't be 100% it, because I'll tell you, even if you have a lot of money, there's the old saying, right? Mo money, mo problems. Believe me, that can be a reality. If you don't have your head on straight, and you don't make unfortunate choices, or if you make unfortunate choices. But Well, like I'm reminded of a forest troop. If you've never looked into forest troop, this is a troop of baboons. Now, let's be clear here: humans are not baboons. They may be closely related. A lot of them may act like baboons, but humans are not baboons. But so baboons are largely seen as a very aggressive species. They regularly, yeah, just very very brutal. So something that happened, and I want to say wherever this happened in South America, I don't remember exactly, but this is a few years ago, maybe a couple decades ago. What happened was is that a troop of baboons, and they're called forest troop, and a troop is what they call their kind of that's what their society gets called. What passes for a society with baboons. A lot of the males were on a hunting expedition, and they found a resort, a human obviously vacation resort, and they started eating the food out of the dumpster, and the food got them sick and actually killed off 75%, I think, of the male population of the forest troop of baboons. And so you ended up with this a population within this troop of 75% females, 25% males. Now, again, baboons, and you can look into this for yourself. It's a tremendous story, and granted, it's one case, but then we don't exactly want to go offing 75% of a troop population of baboons just to prove this thing to be right, of course. Um, but within like a generation of of this forest troop, because of the large amount of females and the honestly smaller amount of males, they ended up like the forest troop became it was no longer this aggressive species within one generation. Suddenly, it's this incredibly peaceful. I mean, they were acting more like bonobos than they were, baboons. And what's the one event that could possibly bring this on? This dramatic change in what is normally, like a baboon's, the life of baboons. The only thing it could be is that, well, holy shit, the ratio of males to females, just drastically changed. And so I say this not as some kind of slight against men, because why the fuck would I slight myself? Okay, but I'm just saying that was that part of what made this such a peaceful experience and such an introspective experience, and otherwise is because of the ratio of is this like forest troop there? I'm just tossing that out there. Okay, and that's my own personal. No one else said this. I am an individual. The other people that attended, do not share my thoughts necessarily. Blah blah blah. This is just my own thoughts on it. And I thought that was fascinating, and I wondered how much of that was a part of it. I don't know. Just tossing it out there, but it was just like I said. I really felt like I was like glimpsing at the future, and it was really an experience. If you have the opportunity, now granted, Kripalu is like a really high end, well known yoga retreat, but if you have the opportunity to take part in a yoga retreat, I definitely recommend it. If you've never done yoga, I wholeheartedly fucking recommend it. I think yoga is, like I said, it's an absolutely wonderful thing. I really get it, and I think, and certainly Stephanie has talked to me about these sorts of things like that. Yeah, like kind of the ancient yogis and all this, like they might have been onto some things, even though they didn't exactly have the right scientific terms and right, attribution to certain scientific concepts. Like they, yoga, really does help the human condition. I think, I don't doubt that at all. And maybe there's some interesting explorations to look into as far as what yoga allows for. And if any of that was contributed to the wonderful time that I had at Kripalu, then boy, I want to promote it all the more. So I think yoga's again just a fantastic, wonderful thing, to get into. In the future, when I have more time, if I have more time in the future, I think personally I'd love to make it a bigger part of my routine, my daily or weekly routine or something. Right? Right now, I mean, I'm concentrating more on strength training, weightlifting and working out, in those respects. But I am totally game for yoga being a bigger part of this, because if it leads to anything like I experienced at Kripalu, like I thought it was wonderful. And I do want to add this in, and this way it'll go to like an even hour. This episode, even though I only planned on it being 30 minutes. But I do want to add this in. Like, at first, when I got there, admittedly, like in the 90s, this used to be a thing. On cartoons in the 90s. Like, I remember it on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember there was a cartoon called Cops, and it was an acronym for Cops. And there was a bunch of other, even on G.I. Joe, they did this, where, like, this new health spa would open up in town, and it would attract all the rich, into that place. And, like, it would end up being, like the spa was actually some kind of, like, dastardly, like, terrorist run thing, and it was all about, like, either mind controlling the rich or whatever, getting their money away from them and all this stuff. And, like, at first, and usually it'll end up becoming kind of culty or something, right? Like, I remember when Casey Jones who ended up going to one of those things in Ninja Turtles. It was badass. But anyway, so, like, when I first see the place, I'm like, boy, this just feels like one of those retreats, and one of those places that all the cartoons I watched as a kid in the 90s warned me about. So at first I was like very, very averse to this sort of thing. But it's just cartoons, and whatever the fuck message they were trying to send, by putting those kinds of storylines into shit, I don't know. I don't know what the hell they were trying to say with that, but it seemed to be a prevalent thing in the 90s. Not even just in cartoons, TV shows would do it too, and even movies. But whatever. I don't get it. But yeah, I didn't feel, I could see where, like, Kripalu, because some of the, and I wanted to talk to some of the instructors, because they talked about how, like, attending Kripalu, like, completely turned around their life or completely changed their life. And I'd love to hear more of the stories around that. Not that I felt in any way that anything about this place was culty, and I could see where a place like this could really become culty very quickly. But I didn't see really any aspects of that. Granted, I didn't spend a ton of time there yet. I hope to go again in the future. But I didn't really feel that at all. And, like, I didn't leave there suddenly thinking. I mean, yeah, like I said, like I've been saying, look, I think yoga's a wonderful thing and all that. I didn't suddenly leave there going, oh, I need to do yoga every day. I got to be all over it and all this stuff. And I respect anybody that does want to do that, of course. I totally get that. But so, yeah, I didn't feel it was culty or anything. Before anybody says that, nah, I don't get it. And I even looked online, like, is there any, like, stories about Kripalu being culty? And I couldn't really find anything. It's just a legit place that I definitely can see how when people go to this sort of thing, it doesn't just have to be Kripalu. It could be, any kind of retreat or yoga retreat. And there certainly are retreats that are culty. I know that. But, that a lot of these yoga retreats, I see what people get out of them, and I think it's beautiful, and I think it's wonderful. And particularly with Kripalu, like I said, I felt like I got this kind of weird glimpse into the future. Not the perfect future, but a future, that could be very, very enjoyable, and that, maybe humans could achieve. So anyway, that's enough of that. Stephanie, did you have any closing thoughts that you wanted to share on Kripalu at all? I'll give you your opportunity. If not, go ahead. Well, you kissed me. Okay. Well, that's nice. Is that your closing thought? Okay, that's real sweet. Did I say anything insane?
No, I don't think so. I'm really glad you had such a nice time. I mean, I'd like to go back there.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought even, like, one day was like a perfect amount of time.
Yeah, one day can actually help out a lot.
We did a ton in one day, and I felt different afterwards.
Sure.
Even though we were only there for one day, so.
Sure. No, you're right. Cool. So anyway, there you have it, folks. As I said yesterday, New Sex and Science Hour will be out this week. I actually have another episode I'm going to be releasing this week for patrons. And then there will be a new Sovereign Tech, and we got a Dynamite one, lined up for this week. So there you have it, folks. My time at Kripalu. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love. And love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.